Okay.
All right.
Okay.
I'm here with a little bit of work talking to Crystal Rose. Crystal, you're in Hawaii, but where in Hawaii are you right now?
I'm in Kahalu, where I live,
Okay.
part-time.
You spend a lot of time back and forth between Kahaluu and Big Island.
Yes, yes. We have a second home in Waimea on the Big Island, and we're there. We try and get there every weekend. And if I'm there 3 weekends a month, I feel like I've accomplished a lot. So it's good.
All right. Well, you had a very busy 50 years.
Hmm.
Get our starting point for everybody. What grade did you start Kamehameha?
I started in the seventh grade as a boarder from Hilo.
Okay. Was that the first time you tested?
Yes.
Okay. Good. And we make our way through graduation at Kamehameha junior, senior year. Did you have anything in mind at that point that you wanted to pursue in your life, or did you have a plan?
Not a specific plan. As like many of our parents, my parents valued education and felt it was very transformative. And my dad went to Kamehameha, but only to the 11th grade. My grandmother was a single mother, and they couldn't afford the tuition his senior year, so he did not
Mm,
graduate. So from his perspective, having my brother and I graduate from Kamehameha was very important to him. Um, and like I said, they valued education, so college was an expectation very strongly on their part. Wasn't an option. It was you are going type of thing. So I started down that route, and like with you, I went to Willamette in Oregon, and there were 9 of us, if I recall correctly, that were there at the time. And graduated in 79, and then from there got accepted to law school and moved to San Francisco and went to law school in San Francisco at the University of California, Hastings College of Law for 3 years till that got me till 82. And then at 82, I came back to Hawaii and started practicing law and working full time. So,
freshman year at Willamette, did you know you wanted to study law?
no, I can't say I knew that.
Okay.
I
You
come from a family, a background in my family on the Big Island of a lot of, my father was a policeman. My uncles were chief of police and or great his uncles were chief of police or assistant chiefs, a lot in the family for in the quote, I would say justice system. So I've kind of grown up around the legal court system situation, but I didn't start off saying I wanted to be a lawyer or that. Once I went to law school, knowing my own personality, knew that I wasn't probably in my DNA to do criminal work. So you kind of, by process of elimination, ended up in the corporate world.
okay?
Okay.
Was it a struggle for you, law school?
My first year, I was it was pretty rough. Law is logical, so it's not, once you understand, it's kind of like they're teaching you how to think, so to speak. What was perhaps more difficult is just the volume. There was a lot of reading and a lot of work, and you felt like you were studying all the time because of the volume you had to absorb and read and comprehend. After the
Yeah.
first year, you kind of learned the ropes, so it was a little easier. I worked in a law firm in San Francisco my second and third year part-time, so I was able to be able to balance it a little better my second and third year. Yeah,
When you're working part-time like that, what's that position called? Is that like a aide or something
it's
or
called a law clerk. You're a law
okay.
clerk. Okay.
Do you get exposed to the actual workings of law, or are you doing just filing and
You're doing more legal research. So most law firms will, at back then we still had books and it wasn't all on computer and like it is now, but back then you would be researching a particular legal issue and looking for case law that would support that. And then you would write up a memo, give it to the lawyer who gave you the assignment. Sometimes it was a partner, sometimes it was an associate. It could have been a team of lawyers that said, we need research on this issue. They send you off, you do it, you come back, and then they take it and incorporate it in if they're doing a court filing or a whatever documents, whatever process they're in the middle of, they'll take that research and incorporate it into what they're doing. So that's how it works.
And it sounds like that would probably just teach you to think more.
Yeah, exactly. And you do all kind, I mean, and every assignment's different. At the time, my first assignment in this law firm in San Francisco, they were dealing with an airplane accident crash. So we were researching all kinds of you know, airplane related cases and how they work and what the liability is of the airlines to a passenger and things like that. I just remember that because I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, especially early on.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So you end up in situations where, or in doing research in topics you know very little about. My dad would say to me, "Oh, you're a well-rounded nothing." You know, I know a little bit about a lot of stuff.
Now, are you a good reader? Because
Yes,
back in those
I,
days, I guess we had no option. So,
you had no options. I just But I do have a funny story that I'll share with you. I have a mo'opuna. My oldest mo'opuna, his name is Jack, and he's 4 years old. And he and I were playing with his dinosaurs on the floor. And he was telling me the names of all of them and how old they were. And he's obviously gotten really into them. And it's obviously not information I had. So I was saying things like, wow, that's really interesting, Jack. Oh, wow, I didn't know you knew that. And trying to be very optimistic, but clearly, didn't know the names or they were 5 million years old and they came from this period. And you know what I'm saying. So finally he says to me, Tutu, can I sit on your lap? And I said, yeah. He says, can I tell you something that could help you? I said, sure. He says, you need to read more because he has a grandmother he thinks is an idiot.
that is classic.
4 years old.
That is classic.
I'm like, okay, let's read now.
It sounds like in another 5, maybe 10 years, he's going to be a dangerous kid to be around.
Well, on things he likes to want. I mean, and that's good because if you have an interest, then you want them to explore those interests, right? So I've got no problem with being the idiot on dinosaurs.
Oh, that's too much, man. So, how many more Huna do you have?
I have four under age 4, so they're all little.
Wow.
Yeah. So I have a 5 month old, 15-month old, a 20-month old, and a 4 year old.
Okay. How many kids do you have?
I have two boys, and both are married, both live in Hawaii. So we're very lucky we have access to the mo'opuna on a regular basis. Yeah.
Your sons, two apiece on the kids?
Two apiece. So my older son has a boy and a girl, and the one I told you about, his name is Jack, is from my older son and my daughter-in-law, Tani. And then my younger son has two boys.
Wow. So, three boys, one girl.
Yeah.
You get them all at the same time. That's a lot of energy being
Yeah, I
expended.
had them all at the same time once, and I kind of tried not to agree to do that anymore.
Hey, I mean, maybe your reading would be better if you
My
had Jack
reading might
Romar.
be better. Oh,
So, have you?
I did decide when I have all four that you have to stagger dinner and very baths. You kind of do it all at once because that's like too much.
You eat, you play with the Lego. Okay, now we switch. You eat, you play with the Lego.
Yeah,
I
basically.
I see what you're doing. Yeah, okay. Separating the forces.
Yeah. So I'm so proud of you to do this for everyone, Kermit. You've gotten huge kudos and I think probably more value than you realize. And the class is very, very appreciative of your all that you do and your hard work. So thank you.
Oh, mahalo. it's challenging, but it's not. I don't consider it hard work. So
Yeah.
it I enjoy it, and I am thrilled by how much I'm learning about people that I didn't really spend a lot of time with
Yeah.
in high school. So it's just like just that closeness. There's an extra closeness now, class wise.
So when you come to the reunion, you don't need to talk to nobody.
No, oh yeah, okay, hold on. Video. I'm
And
crossing my fingers, however, because my license expired Sunday on my birthday.
oh my goodness. Well, happy
Back in
birthday.
Thanks. Back in early April, I started the process of renewing my license in anticipation of the renewal and the real ID requirement.
Right, right.
They required a birth certificate, which I had to order. I thought, oh well, it's early April. I got a month and
Oh
a
no,
half.
our Department of Health is it's unbelievable how bad. That could take
Yeah.
you a year to get.
So the certificate came in Saturday,
Okay.
Sunday closed, Monday closed. I go in Tuesday. Now I have the renewal done, but I have a hard copy expired license and a
Mhm.
piece of paper saying it's been renewed to a real ID.
You
So
can go on
I'm
the TSA website, but I think the experience I'm aware of, at least in Honolulu, that if they'll accept an expired license for a period of time. I don't know if it's 30 days after from the date of expiration. So you can still use it I think with TSA.
okay.
Okay.
I'm
The other,
hoping.
go look on the TSA website. Because I travel a lot, I kind of understand some of the rules. But my understanding is your Costco card can get you through TSA. Okay. And the reason is it's one of the few cards that has a photo of you. So
Yeah.
if you have if you don't have a bring your passport if you have a passport. If you don't have a passport, try and bring a Costco card because
Hmm.
they're gonna pull you out of the line, so you have to go early. But I think that works. Okay. And I think it's on the website that says the Costco card. Okay.
Oh wow.
Yeah. On the TSA website. Check it out.
Okay.
They'll tell you
Yeah.
what documents will work. Okay.
I'm just hoping that a lot of people like me are in the exact same situation. So
I'm sure you're not the first person with an expired license. I'm pretty sure you're not. Sorry, Kermit. I know you want to be special, but I'm pretty sure you're not.
man, I could have been first. Yeah, stand in line, bro. You're not first.
So
So your entire career, have there been any breaks where you've left the world of law, or have you stayed with it
I'm
for
still
most of your career?
practicing till today. So I have
Okay,
been practicing since 1982. So that's about what, 44 years, I guess, or yeah.
okay,
Um, and I haven't taken any breaks. I've been had the privilege of doing other things. So sometimes like at this point, I will tell you I'm on what I call the exit lane in my law firm. I'm kind of slowing down and only doing work that I want to do and like to do. So and that's why I call it the exit lane. I'm slowly
mm,
slowing down and
good.
headed towards retiring from the law firm. But sometimes a case makes me merge to the middle lane, and then I'm not happy. So I'm working too hard. So, but I am it. But primarily, in most of my career has been full-time practice. So
And I'm just guessing that when you had your sons, it's like any other occupation where you get your allotted um
yeah.
stay home time or whatever you call it, and then you come right back and
It's a little different in my case. When I first came home in 82, I went to work for a large law firm in Hawaii and in Honolulu, and they had offices on Maui and as well as in Hilo and Kona. But I worked in the Honolulu office, which is at the time was the main office. And about 3 years later, in 86, eight of us from that law firm left that firm and formed our own firm. And I've
Oh,
been at that firm since 1986. And come January of next year, we'll celebrate our 40th anniversary in this firm that I started. I was one of the founding members. And at which point, to answer your question, I'm now a partner and an owner of that business. So there's no benefits. You just have to take time when you need and when you can and how it works. So it's not where I'm entitled to X amount of time. When I had my children, I had to continue working, but less and try and minimize what I needed to do, but still was on call, so to speak,
oh, okay.
if that makes sense. But I also
Yeah.
got paid. I got paid full time, so it's all part of the process.
Sounds almost like a good salary worker.
Well, I'm the owner, put it that way.
The buck stops there. So,
Exactly. Exactly. So, yeah.
okay. How long have you been married?
I got married the same year I started the firm. So in 86, Rick and I just celebrated our 39th wedding anniversary a couple days ago.
Oh,
And,
congratulations.
some of you may or not know my husband's name or my married name is Towel, spelled Towill. But I go by Crystal Rose. So,
So it's like pronounced like beach towel, same thing.
yes, yes.
Okay. Where did you guys meet?
Um, we met in Kahaluu through, I had an elementary school classmate that I was good friends with, and coming back practicing law, I introduced her to one of the lawyers in our firm, and they got together and moved to Kahaluu, and Rick was their neighbor. So it was a
Oh, cool. Okay.
easy, she returned the favor, put it that way.
Yeah, now we're even. Okay. I give you a spouse, then you give me one spouse, and we'll be all right.
Really good. And we live next door.
Right on. Now, on the recreational side, have you done much traveling in the last 50 years?
Quite a bit. When we turned 40, Rick and I decided that we would try and do more international travel. And so during COVID, um, I decided to try and count how many countries we've been to, and we ended up at around 50 countries that I've traveled to.
Okay.
So 50 countries, and
It
we're headed,
that's it's a
that's
lot, but do you have a favorite?
or do I have a favorite? I have a couple, and the favorites can be for different reasons. So what I'll tell you is the two places that have touched my soul, that kind of made you. One was Africa. We went to Botswana and Zimbabwe with our sons after they graduated from high school and college, and that was a very special and incredible experience of literally living with animals and being around the circle of life, as they say. And the second place I would say is Machu Picchu in Peru, where the Incas built it all out of rocks and the like, and very spiritual and very much both in the same time period and similar to kind of Native Hawaiian practices. So very,
Right
very
on. Yeah.
cool. Um, it was actually discovered, and they have a train named after him by Hiram Bingham. So they have a Bingham train in Peru.
Small world after all.
Small world after all. So,
Now I forget how I think I got it from you. It wasn't secondhand, but could you tell the story about you were somewhere in the Orient and you ran into the guy with the t-shirt?
oh
You
yeah,
remember that?
yeah. So we were in Bali, and we hired a private driver to take us around. And he shows up and he's wearing a Kamehameha t-shirt, and it says like something across the front, and it has the Kamehameha emblem on the sleeve. And I'm just like, wow, how has this happened? And so I take a picture with him, but I asked him, where did you get your shirt from? And he said that he had a customer or a visitor a couple weeks ago, and the guy liked his aloha shirt that he was wearing. He called it flower shirt he was wearing. So they traded shirts. So the visitor was one of the kumus from Kamehameha because the shirt that the Bali um um what do you call him? He was our driver, um, was only given to staff. So it had to have been, it wasn't a shirt that t-shirt that was sold out in public. It was a staff t-shirts. And I knew that. So
Oh,
I'm like, oh,
okay.
you traded it. I don't know who it was, but you traded it with somebody who worked at Kamehameha that happened to be in Bali 2 weeks before me.
Ah,
Small.
what are the odds, man?
What are the odds? And he showed me the picture of the guy, so I took a picture, and then I thought, oh, I better not share that. He might get into trouble.
Yeah, what happened to that T-shirt we gave you? I don't know. I was in Bali and
Yeah, but he got the guy gave him his what he called flower shirt, so I assumed it was like an aloha shirt.
oh man, that's like crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. Small
When was
world.
the last time you were on the mainland for anything?
Oh my goodness. Just recently, uh, I was in San Francisco a couple of weeks ago, a month ago maybe. Um, I was in Japan in April, let's see, early, this is May. So I was in April, I was in Japan. I went to Fukuoka to see the cherry blossoms with some friends. And I know that's a place you want to go, and you should definitely put it on your bucket list. So
I think I will definitely. Do you still have any affiliations with your college law school?
yes, believe it or not, when I went to law school, it Hastings, even though it was a state school, it was funded by the state of California, so it was relatively reasonable. The tuition the year when I was there was $375 a semester, which is like unheard of today. And so, but since then, and given various economic challenges, even though it's part of the state of California, it's almost a private organization now. They don't get as much funding from the state of California.
Oh,
And there was a lot of us at the time from Hawaii that went to Hastings. I think there were close to 15 to 20 in my class from Hawaii. The class ahead of
right.
me, 20 to 25 of 20 to 30 maybe. Anyway, we've as a group uh, put raised money for a scholarship for Hawaii kids. So I've been part of that, and in doing so, we've raised now about $1 million. So we give out
That is
scholarships.
awesome.
And primarily, I mean, I people don't take my calls anymore because I'm usually hassling them for money. But um, my point to them is, we all benefited from that low tuition, number one, and we're in essence we should pay it forward. So it's a good thing because the
That's
tuition is about 50,000 a year, so it's very, very expensive.
so
Okay.
it's gone up a little bit.
Yeah, it's gone up. And it's very expensive, like Hawaii, to live in San Francisco. So the tuition doesn't cover room and board and all of that. So, you know, you got to help out when you can.
And I remember on one of my various lifetime road trips, I stopped and visited you in San Francisco. Do you
I
remember that?
remember that, Kermit. I remember that. It was pretty awesome. You
That
know,
was probably my first time there, and it's a very different city.
it's very different. It was wild back in the late 70s, early 80s, you know,
Did you get to experience? I guess it's a very cultural city.
very much
Did,
so.
did you get to at least have time to
A little bit,
look
a little bit.
around and
Yeah, yeah.
experience? And
They have great museums and great art and, very, very much so. So yeah, I enjoyed living in the city, but I lived in a very nice area, and I remember one day studying and looking out the window, and a bunch of kids were playing dodgeball in the street. And we're from the neighbor islands. We don't play in the street. We play in the yard. So I said, "Oh, I need to go home. I cannot raise my kids where, in order for them to see grass, we have to go to a park."
that's uh that's something that's special, though. I mean, I sat down with Doug Panee the other night, and he was talking about how his grandfather had very specific things they were allowed to do, but for reasons just like yours,
Yeah.
where their contact with nature was enhanced.
Hmm.
They learned specific lessons from him that were all nature based. And yeah, you'd be so limited living in a place where you had to go visit nature,
Right.
make a
Yeah.
special trip.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially, you're from Molokai, being from, like I said, the neighbor islands. We just grew up outside and fishing and all of that. My uncles threw net and they spear um
Yeah.
hay, and I can go down the list. I mean, it just keeps going.
You mentioned a brother earlier, and I think I was aware of him vaguely. Was
Hmm.
he older or younger than us?
I have a younger brother. He's 7 years younger than me. So what basically happened is kind of just because of that situation. We kind of grew up as being only children because when I was 11 and went to Kamehameha, he was 4. So his memory of we didn't kind of growing up, didn't live in kind of together very long, only summers and whenever we came home from Kamehameha. And then
Yeah.
when I graduated from Kamehameha, he started the following year. So we weren't at Kamehameha at the same time because
No
we were
overlap or anything, huh?
overlap. But we're very close now, and he teaches at the high level math classes at the KL campus, and he has his PhD, and he's done very well. So he's good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. He teaches AP calculus, statistics, those types of classes. Yeah,
And I have heard from people who are newly exposed to it, I guess during the Big Island Kahuakai, the
yeah.
Big Island campus, as well as the Maui one, I'm sure, but they're impressed by
Yeah.
the setup and
Mhm.
the organization and just it's a
That I
million
was,
dollar campus.
yeah, in my role, I had the opportunity to get us scheduled that tour of that campus on in KL on the Big Island, and I really wanted that experience for our classmates because I can tell you a lot of what KS is doing now, but when you see it and personally experience it from the kids is when it's really impactful. And
Yeah,
treated us and Oli'd us in, and you've got these elementary kids, reciting Pauahi's Mo'oku Auhau all in Hawaiian. Kind of chicken skin, I gotta be honest.
yeah. I mean,
Because it ain't, Kermit, it ain't anything we learned. So that doesn't mean we didn't learn other things, but they are very, very culturally based and balanced, and it's you would be very proud to see that. I am at least.
it's and it when I think about Hawaii vision and you see that kind of growth, campus on Maui, campus on Big Island, on top of Kapalama, and then you think, and then I guess there's involvement too with a lot of, I see it online. You've got these little elementary schools. I don't know if
Right.
they're charter schools or what, but
So
they're,
okay, so we have 3 campuses now, and Maui and the Big Island. And I just last weekend went to 3 graduations, one on each campus. So I flew to Maui on Friday, I flew to Hilo on Saturday, and then I was at Kapalama on Sunday.
yeah,
Um, okay. So Maui and the Big Island graduates about 120 students, and personally, I'd like to see that expand, and they have the space and the ability to do that. So hopefully, that's in the cards long term. And then, in addition to so all 3 campuses, little less than 700 graduate each year because Kapalama's over 400, 420 something this year, 420.
wow.
So they aim for 450, but I think they're in the 420s this year. And then in addition to that, we have 30 preschools that we own and operate. So that's where you're seeing the preschools are 3 and 4 year olds. Yeah. And there's 30 of them across the state.
Now, is it under a different name? They're not called like little Kamehameha School.
Oh yeah, they are. Kamehameha.
Maili or
Yes,
whatever.
that's how they are referred to. Kamehameha
Oh,
school preschools, and there's 30 of them, so it's quite a
wow.
bit. Yeah, and it's pretty awesome. Um there's preference applied at admissions or to those schools, but they are pretty much get in by a lottery selection, and there's no relationship between the preschools and the Kapalama or Big Island campus. So you could have gotten accepted to the preschool, but not ultimately will not get accepted. In fact, I think it's less than 10% of the preschool kids get into Kapalama or Maui or the Big Island. It's really small numbers.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And, there's over 1,000 kids in the preschools. So part of it is
Okay,
just
so it has to
from
be
here.
limited then.
It,
Yeah.
it has to be limited
But
because, yeah.
still, the benefits they receive from that early education, I mean,
Unbelievable.
you
Unbelievable.
know, you
Unbelievable.
catch them when they're young, they learn it faster, it
Yeah.
stays with them longer.
And they're so adorable, I mean, so it's all good. I wish we could do more. In fact, we working with the lieutenant governor in the state to actually do preschools in public school systems. It's a little challenging for lots of crazy rules that I don't need to tell you about, but and we will support those that are in highly Native Hawaiian communities. So Kamehameha will come in and provide support to the preschool. If they open a preschool in Papakolea, Waimanalo, places that have a lot on the West End, they'll open them up and assist the state in the resources they need to run those schools. So
That's awesome.
yeah, yeah. So it's
And
all
it
good.
it seems to be doing exactly what, Princess Pawa he wanted was to
Yeah, yeah,
give her children
yeah.
the education and the opportunity. Huh? Ah, that
So it made me know a little bit of, because of my role as a trustee, we run a budget that's a 5-year running average of the income made off of the endowment. And the endowment as of June is about $15 billion. So our budget now is close to half a billion a year, 500,000. Of the 500,000, approximately 250 is spent to maintain the three campuses, to run the three campuses, and then there's additional 40 or 50 million needed to run the preschools. And then some is used for just all of the employee costs and things along those lines. And then added to that is we have about 100 million, maybe 110 million that gets given to the community in either grants to particular nonprofit organizations or post-high scholarships. I think this last year we generally on average run about 20 million in scholarships that are for students both post-high, so college.
you happen to know as far as wealth, where Kamehameha ranks in all the national high schools?
We're number one as a high school in the largest endowment as a high school. We're the biggest in the country. Is
Okay.
if you add in universities, I think we might be in the top 20. I just saw a list the other day.
Wow, even
Yeah.
competing against
Like
universities.
Harvard and those guys, MIT, they're at the top. But if not top 20, definitely top 30. Okay.
Wow.
And yeah, so it's kind of, and for us, what you have to understand is our tuition is about 6,000 a year. And so where those institutions you know charge a lot more for tuition, we essentially fund our operations from the endowment because tuition is such a small factor in our overall budget. Yeah.
Yeah.
And of the 6,000, about 85% of our students are on some type of financial aid. So that gives
Do
you a
you
little.
happen to remember, let's take our junior or senior year, I think,
Mhm.
as a boarder, do you
Mhm.
remember what our tuition was?
I I
Uh,
I want to say it was in the $500 to $600 range. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I kind of thought I
And
went.
why I tell you that is my brother who came after me, and my parents had to pay, I think for around that time it was around 600 because that would have been after our senior year. And my dad calculated that it was cheaper to send him to Kamehameha than to feed him at home.
That's exactly what my mom said.
Like, please go.
And, in looking back now that I understand money much better, I mean, my God, we had it made.
Yeah, yeah. Even for those that like us who paid tuition, and the ones that were on financial aid was even they had to work in the dining. Remember, they had to work off some work study in the dining hall. But I think I benefited like everybody else because I mean, my parents surely didn't pay what it cost to put me through school.
Yeah, it was really I don't know, a treasure, I guess.
Yeah. And that's the true beauty of Pauahi's wishes and what I work every day with every ounce in my body to perpetuate her wishes and do what's best for our
Yeah.
Lahu.
Do you do you recall any programs or classes that were offered to us that in hindsight you wish you had taken and didn't?
That's a good question. I have to think about that. I remember um, in hindsight, I took Japanese. In hindsight, I wish I took Hawaiian language, but I don't think we were encouraged to do that back then.
Yeah,
Okay.
see,
In
that
hindsight,
for me is what I remember.
I know everybody told me to take Japanese, and I don't know why, and I don't speak Japanese. But that's
Uh,
I remember taking Japanese, and in hindsight, I regret not taking Olelo Hawaii.
I'm the same way. That's the one that for me I would say if I was asked that question, that and maybe some history
Yeah, yeah,
because I'm awful with history and timelines and if you set it in front of me or spend some time, the picture just suddenly glows in the dark. You're like, oh, I get it now,
exactly. And it's one thing there's even U.S. history, but if you talk about world history, that's a whole nother situation. I was in Egypt a couple of years ago, and I had to like write down years that things happened because I felt like I was just living in the library constantly trying to figure out when this was and which period, and it just kind of it can get overwhelming, and that's because I don't have the background.
And sometimes I feel like the way it's presented is kind of really just a shove it at you kind of thing and you
Right.
absorb or it blows by you and it's lost.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Uh,
you kind of want to tie events to particular periods, even in Hawaiian history, like Kamehameha the Third ruled for almost 50 years. I mean, people don't realize that where some of the other ones were only less in time, right? So he had a huge influence in our Hawaiian history, and he's the one that got everyone. We had the highest literacy rate in Hawaii at the time because he was all about education.
it's kind of amazing. I don't know why I should think that, but I when I think about that far into the past, how any person can have that kind of foresight.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I guess with a good education himself and maybe a great mind on top of it,
Mhm.
he can say, "Oh, I need to stress this, and I need to get my people to do it."
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever I have to do to motivate them or
And
push
that
really hard.
vision and that ability to kind of stay the course if you want. I mean, because there's so many influences on you at a given time, and you just have to say, we're doing this and this is why and how. And that kind of vision is very admirable.
With the little bit of legal work you're doing with your firm, how consuming are the duties of being a trustee for you?
Um,
Is it comfortable? Is it?
Terrible
sometimes
for
get.
me, and I try my best to do as much as I can. We meet um in the past, it's twice a week, month, and it's all afternoon on Thursdays, twice a month. That's a set schedule, and we have specific things we discuss, like the calendar for the year. We'll put out what's coming up at particular meetings, and then we have we have things that come up in between that require us to meet or review or discuss. I'm probably, and then added to that, I'm probably on the phone with the CEO, um, if not daily, 5 times a week, on a regular basis, running down or discussing certain issues that occur. Come July, I will be chairman of the board, and so I will have more responsibility as a result of that. And then we are asked to attend a fair number of events that we need to go to. And, I'll give you an example. Um, the board was very much consumed with the Maui fires and restoring Lahaina, what we can do from a positive standpoint, not to mention, I think I've been sued 700 times because we're named individually in all those lawsuits. Yeah, so that's a big deal. Lots of lawyers, lots of meetings, lots of things like that.
Oh,
And then we got to a settlement of that matter, and it's still kind of pending and working its way through the process. And now, um, you know, it it wouldn't surprise you that we spend a lot of time, and I spend a fair amount of time focused on protecting our preference policy and the concerns that are happening nationally by the Trump administration kind of gets us a little nervous. So
hmm.
we're ready for the
That
fight.
that chairman of the board position, how long is the term?
2 years. So I'll
Okay.
be for 2 years.
Is it on a rotation or a nomination vote kind of program
A
or?
rotation, and we like it that way. There are 5 of us on the board, and we rotate. So what that does is it takes all the politics out of the position, right? Everybody is there, and then everybody supports the overall organization and the chair and each other because there's no issues as to how it should get run. It has you start off when you first start off your onboarding. For me, because I represented the organization before and as a lawyer and was involved in a lot of their large strategic decisions, I had a fair amount of background on how the organization ran. So my learning curve is probably a little shorter than others, but the new trustees that come on, it's a good year to 2 years for them to feel comfortable understanding all of what we do. And because it's not just schools, there's the investment side, there's the land side, there's, risk management, the insurance. I mean, I can go down the list. It's pretty intense. Um,
Hmm.
so so after that, you serve on certain committees. We are also members or trustees of the Charles Reed Bishop Trust. So kind of your first out of the box is to be the chair of the Charles Reed Bishop Trust. And the Charles Reed Bishop Trust oversees Mauna Ala and a certain amount. Bishop Museum is a big beneficiary of that trust. We give money to Bishop Museum, and then there's some other schools that he left in his will to take care of. So that's different from the
Yeah.
Powai. Yeah.
Now I'm just totally ignorant about this. How long are you a trustee for? Till you muck it or you
Oh,
you
no,
quit
no, no,
or?
no. So after the Broken Trust Reformation, the court, before that, the trustees were selected by the Supreme Court. And subsequent to that, the Supreme Court has recused themselves. So the matter goes to the probate court, and the probate court has developed a process for the selection of trustees. And in that court order process, which sets forth the process, it it determined that we will have two 5-year terms. So you get appointed for 5 years, And then you can individually, as a trustee, have the opportunity to seek reappointment. It still requires it to go to court and all of that for a second 5-year term. But the maximum you can serve is 2 5-year terms, so 10 years total. And I've served 5, so I got reappointed in March for my second term that starts, we work on the fiscal year, so it starts July 1st. And I'll serve till June 2029.
Okay.
I think
Who
that's
is our who is our current CEO?
Jack Wong.
Okay.
Okay. And he can serve as long as he serves at the pleasure of the board. So he was selected by the board before I got on ball, and he doesn't have a contract or a term or anything. But if we were unhappy with him, he would know about it.
Jack, close the door on your way out, okay?
Oh.
And don't reopen it. Nah, I don't know.
Anyway,
He's
but
probably
so
great at his
all of
job.
us
So
have staggered it every 2 years, a new trustee joins, so we stagger the terms, but everybody serves for essentially 10 years.
oh, okay.
Okay. If that makes, if that explains the process to you. So my
Yeah, I just
first term expires in June 30th, and pursuant to the court order, I had to apply for reappointment 6 months before my term expired because the the organization wants to know if you're going to stay or not, right? So I applied for reappointment in December. There was a court hearing in March, and I have been reappointed for another 5 years.
they want some advance notice. They don't want to be
Yeah,
surprised. Yeah.
they don't want to be surprised. So yeah,
Okay.
so that's how that works.
Now, for our reunion committee, what duties do you specifically have that are helping to put it together?
That's good. That's a good question. I'm serving as the committee's advisor, and what I try and do is help in any way I can to, for example, I was instrumental in getting us to be invited to Quaihao Church for Founders Day. I asked Jack if our 50th, as of the class celebrating their 50th class reunion, could come to Founders Day. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend that because I went to Founders Day on campus at Keiko Halpio. But other than students and faculty, no one else is invited to Keiko because it's very space limited. So the um, employees that don't work on campus go to Founders Day at Quaihao Church, and there was room to include our class in that. So there was
Mm,
that went there, which I think was helpful. I thought it was a nice way to start off our reunion year, with Founders Day. And
yeah.
then, I've helped where I can in explaining things or getting things accomplished. And then on the Huakai on the Big Island, excuse me, I was able to coordinate the visit to the Big Island campus. And then there's going to be a Huakai on Maui, excuse me, in October. And I've talked to the Maui campus about doing a site visit as well at that. But that's how I can help, you know,
Awesome. Do you
passing.
have an estimate how many people attended the Big Island, Huakai?
I ran, I took care of most of the logistics with Kamuela Chan and Brother Nolan. I think we had 45 came, which is a really nice turnout. And it was 3 nights. So we started in Hilo, then we were in Waimea for 2 nights. So
Earlier, what did you say? Wednesday? No, must have been end of last week. I sat down with Terry Maltaire,
yeah,
and she said she was fortunate because she went there for a wedding. So
yeah.
timing wise, she was like in the right place at the right time. So
Yeah, she came to Friday night in Hilo. And it's like, so when I answer your question, we had some people that came one night and some people that didn't come to other things. But overall, if I count total numbers, about 45.
okay. Now you have, I don't know if you can answer this. This is just purely personal. I set myself up to stay in the dorms. The
Correct.
the dorms are intermediate.
Correct.
Are they like totally different buildings that didn't
Correct.
exist when we were there?
Correct. They years ago, more than 5 years ago, they renovated the dorms on the middle school, and they are very nice and very well done. There's Mod Post East and West is, I don't know if they're gone, but they're not dorms anymore. And why they have put the reunion classmates in middle school versus upper campus is those dorms have elevators. And initially, the people who can stay in the dorms were from classes 50 and above. So the Kapuna, the school felt the Kapuna would be safer or easier for them to be in
Okay.
dorms by elevators. My preference would be personally, but this is above my pay grade, Kermit, but I would rather be on upper campus than, I don't know, maybe some people cannot walk the stairs, but that's the issue.
Well, I just for the memorabilia and that feeling of
Yeah.
um
There's uh the campus decided the requirements for the dorm. I think post-COVID, um, they came back with these requirements. I think they're somewhat stringent in that the return time is 10 o'clock, which I think is kind of early if you were going to go out and enjoy the evening with your friends. And my suggestion had been that if you are on campus, maybe in the concern for safety, you cannot leave after 10, but maybe people could come back after 10. You
like a
see the
one way.
well, like a one-way situation so that people could return by Uber or whatever, but they couldn't leave but my suggestion wasn't well received.
So can you tell me if wherever I'm staying is at least in proximity to where the dorms used to be?
Yeah, if you
Oh,
go, where the dorm where you were in the boys' side, right? So if you go
yeah.
further down that road is where the new dorms are.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
So
Because
that
you
would be
used to
like
be
further east.
I think it was a cul-de-sac or it ended right at
Yeah.
the dorms. Well, it goes further. So it's down there.
Oh, okay.
They completely renovated the middle school campus. You won't recognize it.
Oh, good. You get lots more easy now.
Way easy. Way easy. Okay. So, but I'm just I understand there's only 4 or 5 people staying in the dorms. So, I don't know if you can cancel, but I heard last night that you could still get a room at the Ala Moana if you wanted. Hualani could set you up.
I I'm keeping it as an option because I don't really know where we're gonna end up each night.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
um
Anyway, just giving you the 2 cents of the situation.
sounds good.
And then, I don't really want to publicize it, but I guess years past they had an issue with one of the classes and um, with drugs and too much alcohol. And so that's why all of this is kind of a little bit more restricted. So,
I remember it's been decade and a half at least, I'm sure, but I think I remember hearing that students got like ultra rowdy at a homecoming, so they for a number of years discontinued homecoming. You remember that?
I don't know about that, but I know that like I said, there was some incidences involving Alumni Week. I don't know all the details. Again, everybody needs to be adults and manage themselves appropriately is kind of my take on life, but it's hard, yeah. So the
Because
and what happens, what was I going to say? The the school has concerns over safety and rightfully so. I'm not disagreeing with that. So,
oh yeah, there's got to be
yeah, yeah,
guidelines or
yeah,
parameters because otherwise, and they've got to look toward every eventuality when they make a plan because
Yeah. And see what happens
liability could.
this year. Like usually the luau is on Konya Field, but we are renovating Konya as well. Ultimately, the library will be next, and they have basically tore up Konya Field to put temporary classrooms there. So when this, and they needed to do that. They started already because they have to finish by summer. And for this next school year, because the classrooms at Konya will be under construction. So that's one thing. What I was going to say as well is anyway, they so that's why it's not on both the Kupuna lunch as well as the luau is at Keku Haupio this year.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Because Konya is not available for, literally it's under construction. You wouldn't be, I mean, the footings they're building, it looks like it's permanent buildings. I was up there and I'm like, whoa, when did this happen?
Uh,
So it's not
Somebody
like
has the
temporary
plans.
classrooms. They're 2 stories, so they have this huge, I mean, it's a building. So
Maybe somebody stretching the
definition, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it's temporary. I mean, give me some dynamite. I'll have it down in no time and we can move it and
I think it'll be there when we have to do the library next. I think it'll be there for a couple of years. So it's not a 1 year proposition. So
yeah.
big investment in the future and the tech and upgrading the technology and a lot of it, as you recall, old electrical, old plumbing, those things all require time and effort.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Especially if they're, within a building, you've got infrastructure that you've got to.
And you want, all the students are issued laptops, and so you want to make sure we have good, um, um, resources or background in internet and things for them to have capacity while they're on campus. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. I'm excited by this one. I missed our 40th. That would have been the
Oh,
one in 2015. So, and
and
then
then
I
we
guess
didn't have the 45th, so people haven't seen each other for a while. It'll be really, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun and good things will happen. So I hope
yeah.
you're coming to the Kapuna lunch. It's kind of fun. And we get to come to that now every year if we want. So
Now, is that on Thursday?
it's on Thursday and it's at
Okay.
Keiku Haupio. And in the past, I've served at Kapuna Lunch and Luau, and it's quite fun. It's quite fun to be with the old timers, as one would say. And now we are Kapuna. So
I saw a joke floating around someplace where somebody went to a late reunion, like 50th, and came out and went, "Who invited all these old people to my reunion?"
I don't feel that old. What is it? 60's the new 40 or 40, whatever. I don't know.
It's all
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
number.
Yeah.
So
The
good.
reunion committee has worked really hard. It's going to be a lot of fun. I guess when you're not, are you here Wednesday?
I get in like 1:45 p.m. on Wednesday.
Okay, I think they're planning a casual, um, welcoming event at the Mai Tai Bar at Ala Moana
I
Wednesday
heard that. Yeah.
at 4 o'clock. So I think there's another newsletter coming out with those details. So tell it, give out a shout out to that, and then the Kapuna lunch on Thursday, and then obviously class night on Friday. So and then the luau on Saturday. So all good.
All good.
All good, all good. So I have a funny story at Kapuna Lunch a couple years ago because they didn't want to compete with the Hawaiian food at the luau. They served that watercress soup and shepherd's pie. Kermit, I heard about it for over a year of how the Kapuna were so unhappy with the selection of food.
Okay,
So
what was the behind it? They didn't want to compete with what?
with the Hawaiian food at the luau, like because they're serving the Hawaiian
Oh,
food at the luau, so they didn't serve it at Kapuna lunch, and they got, I mean, a wrath of of upset people. And so the next last year we served lau lau and beef stew. So I'll be interested to see what they served this year. But the kupuna were much happier last year.
Yeah, I can only imagine how that took off.
So there's always something, as one would say.
Keeps life interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, the reunion committee has worked really hard. They've done a great job. I think it's going to be a fabulous week. I hope you can come to all of the events, and you know, we'll take it from there. If somebody doesn't have tickets, they have to scream because we can probably figure it out, you know.
Sounds good. Well, mahalo for all you guys' hard work.
Thank
I
you.
mean, putting it together, it sounds like it's going to be a great time, and I am certain we'll have a great time.
Yeah. Yeah. Kim
You
and
know,
Jane and their committee for Natsunoya, I think they're up to 180 people, so that's a lot.
wow.
Yeah.
I
So,
wonder what the number is before the fire marshal shows up.
we can only hold 200, so we're pretty close to maxing out,
Ugh.
you know. So, anyway, and I just want to mahalo you, Kermit. You know, we had lots of history through Willamette and elsewhere, and I just love you dearly, and I want to thank you for all what you're doing. You're such an incredible person. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Okay, sounds good.
Ahui ho.
Ahui ho.